Greetings. We are still discussing and proving how Christians are the worst among the worst of the Antichrist because they keep calling Jesus by a liar. And we spoke how they call Jesus is the worst evil ever, putting all the sins of humanity over him. Now, let's continue proving how they are the worst among the worst of the Antichrist, calling Jesus a liar and calling their God by a liar, especially the Baptists. Matthew chapter 11, verse 14. And if you are willing to accept it, meaning assurance, if you are willing to accept it, whether you accept or not, this is the fact. This is what Jesus says in the book of Matthew. About John the Baptist, he is the Elijah who was to come. Now remember, I know it. The book of John says the spirit of Elijah. No, in the book of Matthew, we are not talking about the spirit of Elijah. He is saying, and if you are willing to accept it, he is the Elijah who was to come. Was John the Baptist the Elijah? Or Jesus lied? Or they are accusing Jesus of lying? All right, let's go to the book of John, chapter 1, verse 21. They asked him, then who are you? Are you Elijah? Asking John the Baptist. And what John the Baptist said? He said, I am not. Therefore, in Matthew 11:14, Jesus assures us, he say, he is the Elijah. While John the Baptist, who know himself better than anyone else, he say he was not. Did Jesus lie? Are you calling Jesus by a compulsive liar by accepting this book? Is the God of the Baptist a compulsive liar? Because they call Jesus by God. Very well, let's continue. John chapter 3, verse 13. It says, no one has ever gone into heaven except the one who came from heaven, the Son of Man, meaning Jesus. So, John, the liar, is claiming that Jesus came from heaven. He didn't come from a woman named Mary. But you know, they say that incarnation took place, and they're lying. Incarnation is a Hindu. It's not in their book. And the Word became flesh. Doesn't mean that God incarnated in Jesus Christ. Because the Word became flesh when Jesus said, let us make man on our image after our likeness in Genesis, and the Word became flesh in Adam. So, oh, those Christians, foolish nation. All right. So they are accusing Jesus of lying here. No one has ever gone into heaven, ascended to the heaven, except Jesus who came from heaven. So if we can prove that this is a lie, no one ascended, no, many ascended to the heaven. If we can prove that, then John lied, or Jesus lied, or your God lied. The Baptist God. Sorry. Not every Christian believes that Jesus is God the Father. All right. So let's see how many ascended to the heaven. And this proves that John lied, that Jesus came from heaven. And the Christians, of course. Definitely. Foolish nation. The book of Luke, chapter 16, verse 20 and 22 says, and it came to pass that the beggar died and was carried by the angels into Abraham's bosom. The rich man died, also died and was buried. All right. So here we are told that the poor man, the beggar, when he died, he was carried to paradise, to the bosom of Abraham. Here's one. Ascended to heaven. Jesus said no one. Okay, the book of 2 Kings, 2 Kings, chapter 2, 11, verse 11. As they were walking along and talking together, suddenly a chariot of fire and horses of fire appeared and separated the two of them, and Elijah went up to heaven in a whirlwind. Elijah went up to heaven in a chariot of fire. No one ascended to heaven except the one who came from heaven, dear John the liar. Dear Christians who accuse Jesus of lying continuously. Was Jesus a compulsive liar, or you are the worst among the worst of the Antichrist, calling Jesus a liar? And those Baptists, they call their God, Jesus, a liar. Their God is a compulsive liar. Genesis 5, chapter 5, verse 24. It says, Enoch walked faithfully with God, then he was no more, because God took him away. Another one ascended to heaven. How many times Jesus lied in this case? All those times. How many times the God of the Baptist lied? All those times. All those, ascended to heaven. The book of Luke, chapter 16, verse 22 says, and it came to pass. Oh, we spoke about that. On the cross, the man on the cross, he had one man on each side. And one of the men, he said to one of the men, today you will be with me in heaven, in paradise. But guess what happened? According to Christians, New Testament, Jesus didn't go to heaven as he promised to the man. The poor man believed him. He went to hell to preach to the dead, they say, according to the book of the message of Peter, 2 Peter. He went to hell. Jesus went to hell? You sent Jesus to hell? Those miserable Baptists who say Jesus is God, they send God to hell? Your God deserves to go to hell? No need for others to say, let your God go to hell. You sent them to hell. You put him on the cross. You crucified your God. You are the worst and the most miserable among all the nations of the pagans of the past and the present. Now, according to 2 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 2, Paul says, who created Christianity, the greatest liar among all, I know a man in Christ who 14 years ago was caught up to the third heaven. He went to heaven. Now, whether it was in the body or out of the body, I do not know. God knows. Yeah, God knows. Well, another one who went to heaven. Did Jesus lie this many times? Is he a compulsive liar? Is the God of the Baptist a compulsive liar? Or you and your book of John and Matthew and Luke and Mark and this worst liar, child of Satan, his father of lies, Paul, are the worst of the worst among the Antichrist. Till next time.